YouTube, welcome back to another video, and today we have, after 2 days of testing, we have a little video to showcase all the new Season 4 Vortex teams and all my results. So, going over the new elemental pairings, it's kind of back to what it was in Season 1 here. We've got Fire with Poison, we've got Radiant with Lightning, and Frost with Necrotic. So, the biggest loser here, unfortunately, is Frost and Necrotic. Kind of sad to see just after a lot of people were given a free legendary in the form of Charlac and that new summon artifact. Although summons were never, they were never really meta on Vortex. But the problem here is that Frost and Necrotic just don't have a lot of really good supports. Unless you got a handful of people like Phalosia, for example, that is really powerful. They're just going to struggle on the support end of things. So that's going to hold them back in Vortex. And also, even with the best supports like Tauren, Phalosia, and one that I'll be revealing later in this video, you just aren't able to survive long enough to get the kind of damage that other elements are going to be getting, even with Ice Blast doing as much damage as it does. So the biggest winners here, unfortunately, well, I guess, or fortunately, depending on what you've got, is going to be Fire and Poison, and probably Fire and Poison is going to be actually the biggest winner because of the mid-season character that I'll be showing off later. But then Radiant and Lightning is also pretty good because Radiant has such good supports, and let's get into it. So, starting off, even after the nerfs, they've nerfed him, I think, like 2 or 3 times now. Rook is still the best team, and it's not even close. So before he was like, 500 million or something ahead of other teams. Now he's only, I don't know, 80 million or something ahead of other teams. Still way ahead. And if you're competing with other people at the top of the leaderboard, you're probably just going to be competing with other Rook players. And everyone at the top is going to be Rook. And then anything below Rook is going to be, in this order. So we've got Rook in rank 1 by a large margin here with 260 million. We're using the new hero that's going to be a mid-season event character called Calavera. She's incredibly good. She's on the level of like Ardrith as far as she just brings so much value to the team. And especially in Vortex, she has a lot of tools to help you on Vortex. So first of all, she can cleanse a debuff, which is perfect for the defense penalty. Although this is on your battle skill, you can time this with the right amount of skill haste. I think it's anywhere between about 30 and 40 skill haste is what you need to have this battle skill cleanse the defense penalty. And she's also putting a recovery over time buff on your team, which is perfect for the horn. So she's a good horn user. But the funny thing enough is if you don't have the horn, but you have the staff, she's also a good staff user. She's got a defense-based heal, just like Garius. 550% of her defense heal. So either artifact is actually very good on her, a horn or staff. And then, yeah, she's just incredible. So she does this illusion spellcasting, which is basically a delayed spellcast, and this happens on her ult, so it's a little awkward to time her. She puts up a defense up buff and heals you for a big defense amount, but then she does the attack penalty like 2 or 3 seconds later, so it's kind of awkward to time her, but regardless, she's bringing a lot to the team. A defense up, a massive heal, which turns into a shield if you're using staff, an attack penalty, a cleanse, a recovery over time. Just a very solid character. And you can use her as a tank because she doesn't really do damage, so you're just going to build her with full defense anyway and some accuracy. So, yeah. And, Cinderelle, helping out with this team. These are the 2 best supports I could find to pair together for Fire Poison. Cinderelle using staff and her using the horn. And this team survives a pretty long time. So this is the Rook team. Moving over to Wild, we got the same 2 supports doing the same stuff. But now we have a Flora, Erich, Tonron combo, classic, back from Season 1, making a big hit here with 185 million. And then Ice Blast, which was kind of one of the better teams, like I said, is going to struggle a little more this season because of the weaker supports that Frost and Necrotic have. But here we've got Phalosia, who everyone knows is incredible, and this new character, Astaion. Now, this character is actually quite surprisingly really good on Vortex, even though it doesn't read that way. She looks like she'd be more like a arena character or like a dungeon specialist or something, but the reason why she's so good is because she reduces the enemy's defense by 30% here on the passive, and this counts as a defense penalty even on Vortex. So if you pair her with her passive with like Witch's Remains or something, which we're using here on Shinna, you can have periods of time where the boss is under an 80% defense penalty, 30 from Astaion and 50 from Witch's Remains. So it's and this is permanent. This lasts the entire fight, this defense penalty. So she every time I put her on a team, she made that team go up by like 30 million damage. I think this team without her was like 120 something. And then I swapped her in for Tauren. I took Tauren out and put her in instead, and we jumped up 30 million up to 165. So this is going to be a really desirable character to try and get. She's also a healer, and she heals based on her max HP over the course of 10 seconds. So she's perfect for the Horn. She can fully stack this Horn on your team. And if you just stack her with a bunch of HP, here we have like over 100k HP, then this heal is going to be pretty significant. It's 10 seconds, 3.5 per second, so she can do 35% of her max HP heal, and if you have her over 100k HP, that means that she's healing for 35k. So most of your team is going to be like, 50, 60k HP, so that's healing them for like 70% of their life. So she's a really good character, surprisingly, and I think she's actually an exclusive. So this season, it's kind of interesting. They didn't add exclusives that have their own artifacts, kind of like last season with Rook. They added support exclusives that don't have their own artifact, similar to like LC Bray and Chrysos and characters that we know are not on banners because they're considered exclusive, but they don't have their own artifact. They're considered the support exclusives. So I think she is one of those. So she's going to be hard to get. She's going to be not on any banners, and she's going to be pretty rare to summon. But if you can get your hands on her, she's going to help out all Frost and Necrotic teams this season to do more damage on Vortex, and probably on any boss, actually, with this defense penalty. Moving on, we got Poison, using Lothair, the debuff extension from Corrin to get 40 poisons, and this team does 155 using the same two supports, again, Calvera and Cinerelle, these two being the best. If you don't have Calvera, because she's not going to be acquirable until like mid-season, I'm pretty sure you can use Ogok to get pretty similar results because he does a heal, he does attack penalty, he can cleanse. He does a lot of the same things that she does, but he doesn't bring a defense up. So there's some things he can't do that she does. And he also can't really, he's not as good of a Horn user. He can get you like 1 or 2 stacks on average, but he can't give you the full 3 stack uptime on the Horn. And then, yeah, I don't know. He's not quite as good. But the Unkillable is also nice to prevent you from dying on certain abilities. So that's another option. If you don't have her yet, then you can try to use Ogok, maybe Chrysos. There's a bunch of different really good supports for fire and poison. Even Furbath is pretty solid. But moving on, we got Dauntless here at 155 million, pretty much tied for poison. These teams are pretty much the same. I think just a bit of gear upgrade on the Dauntless team would make them pull ahead, and the same thing with this poison team. If I had better gear on Lothair, this team would pull ahead of Dauntless. So this is all up to gearing, but with the gear I have here on the test server, which is not very good, they ended up just being equal at 155 million. And then surprisingly, Thunderbolt, which has never been meta for Vortex, is now actually somewhat viable here. With this new character that they just added called Orfina. She is probably the best DPS that they've added for Vortex this season. This Astyon character, she makes your team do more damage, but she's a support, she's a healer. But the best like single target DPS that they've added is Orfina. So she's really interesting. She does all her damage with basic attacks, so you think that she would be like a Dauntless character, but she's actually Thunderbolt. And she has this thing where she refreshes Thunderbolts or electrocutes on her passive every time she auto-attacks, or 75% chance when she auto-attacks. But with how fast she's attacking, she's constantly refreshing these electrocutes. And then these electrocutes getting refreshed are counting as applying new electrocutes, which is then causing Percunte to gain his overwhelm stacks. So these two pair really well together. She attacks really fast. She gives him full stacks, and then he ults with full stacks, and they just keep spamming out damage. And this team is really impressive. So they have this new gear set they added this season, which gives 70% attack speed. And all you want on this character is attack speed. You want her to attack as fast as possible. And then this ult here makes it so that her auto attacks shoot 2 extra bullets, each doing 300% attack lightning damage. So on every single basic attack, she is doing 700%. And you can get her to attack faster than once per second. She can attack almost twice per second. So every second, you're doing 1,400 damage attack. It's crazy. She's such a good DPS. Here with this gear set and using the Great River Lamp, she's only doing, I think, like 5% less damage than Percunte, who's an exclusive with his artifact, and he's always ulting with full stacks on his passive. So, I mean, she's an incredible DPS. I even want to show this off a little bit because... it's so fun to watch. So this is a 2 DPS team. There is no one else in the Thunderbolt category that is really that good of a DPS. So the best way to make this team get damage is to put them with 3 supports that can keep them alive for a really long time. So you know how back in season 2, I think, I made that unkillable team that lasts like 240 stacks or whatever. This season, it's even a little bit better. I was able to get this team to survive to 300 stacks using the same old Sagamir, Ardreth, Garius turn boosting cheese, and you'll have to go watch that video. Actually, I'll do a more in-depth video on this later, but basically we're turn boosting to always have shields up, and then we just last a really long time because we have so much defense from Ardreth, Garius, and just massive staff shields. And yeah, look at that. She's just right behind Percante here with 40% of the damage. And like I said, he is ulting with 30 stacks every single time. So he's doing significant damage. And the fact that she can keep up is really impressive. And so yeah, that's the team. Moving on, let's go to the next category. I think the next team is, we got some Radiant teams. No, actually Shadow. Shadow's next. So this team can do 145, pretty good for only 2 DPS, surviving 300 stacks. And then we got Shadow. So Shadow actually got some buffs from last season. Like I said, Astaion just makes any team do more damage because of the passive. And then we're putting in Perseus. So he's interesting because he has a similar passive to Astaion, but instead of a defense penalty, he has like a pseudo attack penalty. So he puts up 30 stacks of this Fallen Poison, and those count as an attack penalty. They reduce the target's attack by 1% per stack. So he's helping the team survive a little bit longer. And he's also able to be built full attack and use the pipe organ to help our Ozul do more damage. So Ozul is considered a ranged character at the start of the fight because he has to transform into a monster, into a demon before he becomes a melee character. So the pipe organ actually takes effect at the start of the battle and gives him extra attack. So having someone with pipe organ on your team with Ozul is a good way to help boost his damage. I did try using Daphne in this team, but unfortunately she comes out of possessing Ozul at the wrong times and then just randomly gets one shot. So she's actually kind of unviable on Vortex just because how she works, which is kind of sad to see. I wish she could gain buffs and shields and stuff while she's possessing, but she doesn't, so she just ends up dying. So yeah, this team's pretty solid. 122 million. Taldi's in here to keep Ozul in his form. This guy is just doing some damage. I think he only does like 12 or 13%, but he's at least doing some damage. He's providing that attack and that pseudo attack penalty, like I said. And then we've got Faloja and this healer keeping us alive. And then here we go, Burn. Burn only got a small change. This character, Pikeston, he can put up enough burns to get you to 10 stacks each round. So he basically replaces Karf because he's also giving a morale buff, which is making our Ascetius do more damage. So this morale buff gives a bit of attack, I think. 1% attack per stack. So he's giving 20% extra attack to Ascetius. And this team, 90% of the damage, or like 80% of the damage is Ascetius. So boosting him is the only thing we care about. So Karf comes out, this guy goes in, he's boosting Ascetius, and he also is able to get us to the 10 stacks of burn each round. So that's really all we care about. So yeah, that's the only change to Burn. Still not really a Vortex team, so I wouldn't be using this if I had one of these other teams. Burn's really meant for more AoE type areas like Arena and stuff. Moving on, we got Radiant. So let me just showcase the buffs we have on Vortex here on the test server. We have a 30% more Radiant damage buff. So Radiant, these teams, this is the actual result that they got. So they are overperforming even though they are the worst teams. 93 million with a 30% damage buff. So this team without that buff would probably be like 70 something. And this team, this Aura team without this buff, I don't know, like 60 something. These teams are terrible, unfortunately. Yeah, the Radiant just doesn't have any crazy Vortex teams. These teams are more AoE focused and good in like Arena and Famianer and stuff. They're not really meant for Vortex. So I wouldn't even bother with making a Rally or Aura team for Vortex. They're just not going to perform. You could probably make like a somewhat budget, like Dauntless or Ice Blast or Wild or something, and probably still outperform the full Legendary Aura and Rally teams. And then coming in here at the end are some of the budget teams I tested. We got, unfortunately, pretty bad results. I think the elemental pairings and the gear that's been changed. So there's no Puppeteer set to give extra defense. the gear and the elemental pairings are a little harder to make good teams now on a budget. So yeah, the budget teams have taken a hit. I remember last season I made some team that did like 65 million on a budget, and we got a couple 50 million teams. It definitely was much stronger than this season, whereas the best team I could come up with this season is only 48 million with this Dauntless team using this new epic, who's actually pretty good. And then Wild here, you got two different variants with Adolphus and Vikuk with Furbath and 3 Wild. Using Foley just because we needed an aura. This team didn't have an aura. And then Ice Blast, unfortunately, like I said, Necrotic and Frost have bad supports. So even using 3 supports with Megan, Thea, and Elida, still can't get more than 30 million. This team survives a pretty long time, but it's just not good enough supports. And then finally, I tested a team using summons. Since you're given Charlac and this artifact for free, I thought, hey, let's let people use their new legendary in Vortex. And to no one's surprise, summons are still terrible. 21 million. It's just horrible. Don't use summons in Vortex, guys. It's bad. Maybe if you have Lowannis, you can try a shot at it and do a bit more damage. But summons are just not really. They need buffs. Honestly, they just need buffs. They're not really good anywhere. Let's be honest. So yeah, unless you got Lowannis and like other legendaries to support her, you just can't really get the results. So yeah, that's my testing. We'll be doing a more in-depth video on all these teams, going in-depth on the gear and the timings and everything. Keep an eye out for that. And then I'll also make a video going more in-depth on the budget teams as well. So keep an eye out for that. And yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Peace.